My vice president fired me to save face, then my testimony crashed his promotion ceremony. Hey everyone, before we get into this powerful story, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I love seeing our community from all over the world, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell because this one, you don't want to miss. The boardroom was silent except for the hum of the projector. My vice president, Damian Holt, stood at the head of the table, his voice cold and clipped. Evelyn, you've embarrassed this company, he said, slamming a report onto the table. Dozens of eyes turned to me, eyes that knew the truth but stayed silent. The failed project presentation had been his call, not mine. I'd warned him about the budget miscalculations. I'd sent 3 emails flagging the risks. But he dismissed them all, insisting we move forward. Now, watching him glare at me with manufactured disappointment, I understood. He was throwing me under the bus to protect his image. You're fired. Effective immediately. My throat tightened. 6 years. 6 loyal years I'd given to this company, working late nights, sacrificing weekends, building systems that saved millions. And this was how it ended. The room felt airless. My hands gripped the edge of the table as shame and fury warred inside me. As I stood to leave, the CEO's secretary caught my eye. Her expression was strange. Almost pitying, as if she knew something Damian didn't. That look stayed with me as I walked out. I packed my things under harsh fluorescent lights, pretending not to notice the whispers. Colleagues I'd worked beside for years suddenly found reasons to look away. Some glanced at me with sympathy but said nothing. Cowards, every one of them. When I placed my ID badge on HR's desk, my fingers shook. The HR manager, a woman I'd shared coffee with countless times, couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Evelyn, she whispered. But sorry didn't pay my bills. Sorry didn't erase the humiliation. Outside, it was raining, the kind of cold drizzle that made the world feel smaller, lonelier. I stood under the building's awning, watching cars splash through puddles. For a moment, I almost broke down. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. You need to see something before you leave this company. My breath caught. I stared at the words, heart pounding. Another message appeared immediately, a link. My thumb hovered over it. Who was this? What did they want? But curiosity, and maybe desperation, won. I clicked. The link opened to a private folder, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Inside the folder were project documents, mine, but they'd been altered. Budget reports I'd submitted showed numbers I'd never written. Expense approvals bore signatures that looked like mine but weren't. Someone had forged my handwriting. Line items I'd questioned were now listed as approved by me. Costs I'd flagged as excessive were marked as authorized under my name. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a firing. This was a frame job. Someone was covering up a massive error, and they were using me as the scapegoat. I scrolled through document after document, each one more damaging than the last. Then I saw it, a memo dated 2 months ago, signed with my name, approving a budget overrun of $3 million. I'd never seen this memo before in my life. My hands trembled as I took screenshots, saving everything to my phone. Another message appeared. He used your name to sign off the falsified expenses. I typed back quickly, who are you? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. I stood in the rain, staring at my phone, realizing the full scope of what Damian had done. He hadn't just fired me. He'd set me up to take the fall for his corruption. It wasn't just a firing. It was a trap. I needed answers, and I knew only one person I could trust. Maya worked in finance and had always been honest with me. We met at a quiet coffee shop across town, away from anyone who might recognize us. She looked nervous, constantly glancing at the door. "You shouldn't have come back to the building," she said quietly. "Damien's watching everything." I leaned forward. "Maya, tell me what you know." She hesitated, then pulled out her tablet. "He told finance to reroute funds from the Henderson project. They're using your name as the authorizing officer. All the paperwork points to you." My hands clenched around my coffee cup. The ceramic felt hot against my palms, grounding me. When did this start? Months ago. Maybe longer. I only found out last week when I was reviewing quarterly reports. She bit her lip. "Evelyn, he's been planning this for a while. The firing wasn't sudden. It was strategic." Rage boiled in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "Then let him think I'm gone," I said, my mind already forming a plan. "It'll make it easier to watch him fall." The next morning, I returned to the building disguised as a visitor. My mentor, Patricia, had given me her guest badge, no questions asked. She'd always believed in me. I wore a different coat, pulled my hair back, kept my head down. Security waved me through without a second glance. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I watched Damien charm the auditors. He wore his best suit, his smile wide and confident. His gestures were expansive as he explained away discrepancies. "Unfortunately, our former employee Evelyn made several unauthorized decisions," he said smoothly. "We're still uncovering the extent of her gross negligence." The auditors nodded, taking notes. One of them asked about signature verification. Damien laughed, actually laughed, about my dismissal. "We should have caught it sooner." "But you trust your people until they prove otherwise, right?" My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I pulled out my phone, positioned it carefully against the glass, and hit record. Every word. Every lie. Every smug expression. I captured it all. When the meeting ended, I slipped away before anyone noticed. Back in my car, I watched the footage 3 times, making sure the audio was clear. It was perfect. Damien had just handed me the rope to hang himself. I reached out to Julian, an old friend who worked in compliance. We'd started at the company the same week, years ago. He owed me more than one favor. We met at a park after work, sitting on a bench overlooking the river. "You're playing a dangerous game," Julian said, watching joggers pass by. I told him everything, the forged documents, the setup, the recording. His expression grew darker with each detail. "Evelyn, there's something you should know," he said finally. "Damien's being promoted. Executive Vice President. The ceremony is in 3 weeks." My heart sank. Of course. Of course he was being rewarded while I was being destroyed. "They're fast-tracking it," Julian continued. "The board wants to show confidence in leadership after some bad press last quarter." I stared at the water, watching it flow endlessly downstream. Then I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "Then I'll make sure his climb ends in free fall," I said quietly. Julian studied me for a long moment. "I'll help you. But we have to be smart about this." I nodded. Smart. Careful. And absolutely devastating. With Julian's help, I followed digital breadcrumbs through the company's financial systems. He had access I didn't, and he knew where to look. We spent nights in his apartment, laptops glowing in the darkness, tracing money through shell accounts and disguised reimbursements. Every transaction had a pattern. Funds moved out of project budgets into personal accounts. Expense reports that made no sense, luxury hotels, first-class flights, restaurant bills that would feed a family for months. All approved by Damien. All hidden under layers of bureaucratic paperwork. We found offshore payments routed through consulting firms that didn't exist. We found vendor contracts signed with companies that had no websites, no history, no physical addresses. Every line item tied back to Damien's approval chain. His signature was everywhere, authorizing payments that enriched him while draining company resources. "This is bigger than just you," Julian said, rubbing his tired eyes. "He's been doing this for years." I saved every file, every screenshot, every piece of evidence. Then Julian turned to me, his expression serious. "If you're caught digging, he'll destroy you," he warned softly. I met his gaze. "Then we don't get caught." That night, my phone rang. Damien's number flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity made me tap the green button. "Evelyn," he said, his voice calm, almost fatherly. "I've been thinking about you. This whole situation has been unfortunate." Unfortunate. As if he hadn't orchestrated every moment of it. "I want to make things right," he continued. "I'll offer you a generous severance package and a confidentiality bonus. Let's part peacefully, with dignity intact for both of us." I bit back the bitter laugh threatening to escape. "Send it in writing," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Of course. I'll have legal draft something tonight." He paused. "You're a smart woman, Evelyn. I hope you'll make the smart choice." The call ended. An hour later, his email arrived in my inbox. I opened it, scanning the legal language. The subject line read, "Confidential settlement, termination under misconduct." The offer was substantial: 6 months' salary, health coverage, a non-disparagement clause. But buried in the fine print was a complete waiver of my right to speak about anything that happened during my employment. He wanted to buy my silence. I forwarded the email to Julian with one word: evidence. I met the CEO's assistant in a parking garage downtown. Her name was Claire, and she'd worked for the company longer than anyone. She'd seen executives come and go, watched power plays unfold, heard secrets whispered behind closed doors. We sat in my car, rain drumming on the roof. "The board suspects Damien," she said quietly, glancing around despite the empty garage. "But they need more than suspicion. They need someone willing to speak up." I studied her face. "Why are you telling me this?" She smiled sadly. "Because I've watched him destroy careers for 10 years. You're just the latest. Someone has to stop him." Her hands twisted in her lap. "The CEO is decent, but he's cautious. He won't move without concrete proof and a whistleblower willing to testify." My heart raced. This was the opening I needed. "The promotion ceremony," I said slowly. "It's public, right?" Claire nodded. "Completely. Broadcast for transparency after last year's scandal. Investors, press, board members, everyone will be watching." I met her gaze, decision crystallizing. "Then let me be the one," I said. "Let me be the whistleblower." Claire's expression shifted to something like relief. "I'll make sure you're invited." I spent the next 2 nights building my testimony file. Every email where I'd warned Damien about budget issues. Every voice note where he'd dismissed my concerns. Every budget trail showing funds disappearing into shell companies. I organized everything chronologically, building a narrative that even a child could follow. Julian provided access logs showing when documents were altered, timestamps proving the forgeries happened after my termination. Maya sent financial reports with highlighted discrepancies. Even Noah, a junior accountant fired months before me, contributed spreadsheets showing Damien's pattern of fraud. By midnight on the second night, I had a file so comprehensive it could end careers. I backed it up to 3 different cloud services, emailed copies to myself, and saved everything to an encrypted drive. Then I woke up to banging on my apartment door. My heart hammered as I stumbled out of bed. Through the peephole, I saw my door hanging crooked, the lock broken. Inside, my apartment was destroyed. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied, papers scattered everywhere. And my laptop was smashed on the floor, screen shattered, hard drive exposed. Everything was gone. A legal letter arrived that afternoon, delivered by courier. It accused me of data theft, corporate espionage, and breach of confidentiality agreements. Damien was moving first, striking before I could organize my defense. My hand shook as I read the threatening language: cease and desist, criminal prosecution, financial ruin. Panic clawed at my throat. Without the evidence, I had nothing. Just my word against a vice president about to become executive VP. Before despair could set in completely, my phone rang. Julian. Don't worry, he said immediately. I backed up everything to the cloud last night. Every file, every document, every piece of evidence. It's all safe. I collapsed onto my couch, relief washing over me like a wave. Julian, I could kiss you right now. He laughed. Save it for after we win. But Evelyn, this means he knows we're coming for him. He's scared. I looked around my destroyed apartment, at the broken door and shattered belongings. Good, I said, steel entering my voice. He should be scared. Then the game's still on. Julian's voice grew serious. More than on. It's about to get very real. Are you ready? I thought about my father, who died after being wrongfully dismissed from this same company. I thought about every person Damien had destroyed to climb his ladder. I was born ready. If you were Evelyn right now, what would you do? Tell me in the comments, and if you're feeling this story, subscribe, like and share it with someone who needs a little motivation today. Julian introduced me to Noah the next day. We met in a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where nobody paid attention to anyone else. Noah was younger than I expected, maybe 26, with nervous energy and intelligent eyes. I was fired 8 months ago, he said, stirring his coffee obsessively. Damien blamed me for an accounting error that he actually made. I lost my apartment. Had to move back with my parents. I listened as he described the exact same pattern, the setup, the forgery, the public humiliation. But I kept backups, Noah said, his voice gaining strength. I knew something was wrong. I saved everything to a personal drive before they escorted me out. He pulled out a folder stuffed with papers. Including proof Damien forged your signature on multiple documents. I compared the handwriting. It's not even close. I stared at the documents, seeing my name written in someone else's hand. Why didn't you speak up before? Noah's expression darkened. I tried. Nobody believed me. They said I was bitter about being fired. After a while, I gave up. He met my eyes. But I never deleted the files. And I'll testify, Noah said firmly. But only when it matters most. When everyone's watching and he can't escape. A week later, an anonymous email went out to every board member, major investor, and key journalist who covered our industry. It hinted at financial misconduct tied to a high-ranking executive about to be promoted. It didn't name Damien directly, but the implication was clear. The rumor spread like wildfire through the business community. News outlets picked it up, running speculative pieces about corporate corruption. Investors started asking questions. The board called emergency meetings. And Damien responded exactly as I'd hoped, with arrogance. He gave interviews calling the allegations baseless. He appeared on a business podcast, describing the anonymous tipster as a bitter ex-employee with an axe to grind. He smirked for the cameras, confident in his innocence. Some people can't handle being held accountable for their mistakes, he said smoothly. They'd rather tear down others than accept responsibility. I watched from my apartment, sitting on my damaged couch, surrounded by evidence of his desperation. Keep talking, Damien, I whispered to the screen. Every word digs you deeper. Claire texted me, the board is getting nervous. But they're still moving forward with the promotion. They think public confidence will quiet the rumors. I typed back, not for long. The ceremony was 2 weeks away. And I had one more card to play. The tabloids hit first. Photos of Damien's wife leaving their house with suitcases. Headlines screaming power couple in crisis. Apparently, she'd filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and financial impropriety. The details leaked fast. She'd discovered his secret accounts, the luxury purchases hidden from her, the lies about where money was going. His perfect life was unraveling in real time. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt. His wife, his kids, they were innocent in this. But then I remembered standing in that boardroom, shame burning my face, while he destroyed my reputation. I remembered the sleepless nights, the financial stress, the humiliation. The guilt faded. That same night, an email arrived from corporate legal. Not threatening this time. Instead, it was an invitation to attend Damien's promotion ceremony. Given your significant contributions to the company during your tenure, we would be honored by your presence at this important event. I read it 3 times, disbelief morphing into dark satisfaction. They were inviting me. Whether out of obligation, or because Claire had arranged it, or because they genuinely didn't realize the irony, it didn't matter. They were handing me the perfect stage. I replied, accepting the invitation, my hand steady, my purpose clear. This would be where his lies ended. The promotion ceremony was scheduled to be lavish. A ballroom at the city's most expensive hotel. Broadcast live for transparency, with journalists, investors, and every member of the board in attendance. The company was making a statement, showing the world that despite rumors, they stood behind their leadership. The irony was suffocating. Damien would stand on that stage, accept his promotion, shake hands with the CEO, all while cameras rolled and shareholders applauded. Unless I stopped him. I studied the event schedule Claire had sent me. Opening remarks at 7. CEO speech at 7:30. Promotion announcement at 8. There would be a period for ethical concerns and transparency statements, a formality added after last year's scandal, meant to show corporate accountability. That would be my window. 20 minutes to speak truth to power while the world watched. I practiced my testimony, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, forcing my voice to stay steady. Some nights I broke down, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I was attempting. Other nights I felt invincible, righteous anger fueling me. Julian and Noah met with me regularly, refining our strategy, anticipating Damien's countermoves. He'll try something, Julian warned. He won't go down quietly. I smiled grimly. Neither will I. Julian and I sent sealed copies of our evidence to every board member's private email address. Not the corporate accounts Damien could monitor, their personal emails, the ones they used for sensitive matters. The packages were timed to arrive the morning of the ceremony, just hours before the event. Each envelope contained a summary document, key pieces of evidence, and instructions, opened during the ceremony's transparency segment. Critical information regarding Executive Vice President candidate. We'd coordinated with Claire, who ensured the board members would be alerted to check their personal emails that morning. It was a calculated risk. Giving them the evidence early meant they could warn Damien, potentially derail our plan. But it also meant they couldn't claim ignorance later. They would know the truth before promoting him. If they went ahead anyway, their complicity would be undeniable. As we finished sending the last package, Julian looked at me seriously. This is it. After this, there's no going back. I nodded. I know. We were in his apartment, multiple computers glowing with evidence files. Suddenly, Julian's phone rang. He answered, listened, then his face went pale. One of Damien's aides overheard something, he said. Someone in compliance talking about evidence packages. He's running to warn Damien right now. My stomach dropped. We'd been so careful. How much does he know? Enough. Julian was already grabbing his laptop. We need to move faster. Within an hour, Damien ordered IT to scrub the company servers. Every incriminating file, every damaging document, delete it all. Emergency override, full purge, no traces left. I watched the news spread through our network of allies. IT employees were being pulled into midnight meetings, forced to work through the night. System administrators looked exhausted and confused, following orders they didn't understand. Maya texted me, "They're erasing everything. Financial records going back years. He's destroying evidence." My heart raced. Had we been too slow? Too careful? Then Julian called, and I heard the smile in his voice. "He forgot something crucial," Julian said. "The originals. The physical documents, the backup drives, the files we mailed directly to board members' homes. You can delete digital files, but you can't hack someone's mailbox." Relief flooded through me. The packages? Delivered this morning. Every board member received theirs. And they're opening them. He paused. "Evelyn, half the board is calling for an emergency meeting. They want to postpone the ceremony." "No," I said quickly. "Don't let them postpone. I need that stage. I need everyone watching." Julian hesitated. "Are you sure? This could get ugly." I thought about my father. About Noah. About every person Damien had crushed. "I'm sure. Let the ceremony happen. Let him think he's won. And then I'll take it all away." The night before the ceremony, I stood at my father's grave. The cemetery was quiet, just wind rustling through trees and distant city sounds. His headstone was simple, Daniel Foster. Beloved father. Taken too soon. He'd worked at the same company for 20 years before being wrongfully dismissed. The stress killed him within months, heart attack at 53. I'd been 19, watching him deteriorate under the weight of injustice, unable to help. "I'm doing this for you," I whispered, kneeling on the cold ground. "For everyone they threw away like garbage. This time, justice won't die quietly." Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were fury, crystallized into purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from the CEO himself: "Tomorrow, your voice will be heard. I promise you that." I stared at the message, surprised. Claire must have reached him directly, shown him the evidence. He knew what was coming. The ceremony wouldn't be cancelled, but it wouldn't be what Damien expected either. I texted back, "Thank you." Then I stood, brushed dirt from my knees, and left the cemetery. Tomorrow, everything changed. Tomorrow, truth would have its day. And Damien Holt's perfect facade would shatter in front of the entire world. The ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers. I'd forgotten how beautiful the Grand Marquis Hotel was: marble floors, gold fixtures, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Reporters filled the front rows, cameras positioned at strategic angles. Investors and board members occupied the center tables, dressed in their finest. Employees clustered near the back, some looking excited, others nervous. And Damien stood near the stage, shaking hands and smiling like a king accepting his crown. He wore a charcoal suit tailored perfectly to his frame. His hair was styled, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. Confidence radiated from every gesture. He didn't know I was there yet. I'd entered through a side door Claire had arranged, staying hidden in a service corridor. Through a gap in the curtains, I watched him laugh at someone's joke, completely at ease. The CEO stepped to the podium, tapping the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this important occasion." The room quieted. Before we confirm tonight's promotion, I want to address recent concerns regarding our internal ethics and transparency. Heads turned, curious. Damien's smile tightened slightly. Corporate responsibility means accountability, the CEO continued. So I've arranged for someone to speak tonight. Someone with first-hand knowledge of our processes. He gestured toward the side entrance. Evelyn Foster, please join us. The room erupted in confused whispers. Isn't that the woman he fired? Someone said loudly. I stepped out from behind the curtain. Every eye in the ballroom turned to me. Camera lights flared. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking on marble, echoing in the suddenly silent space. Damien's face went white. His confident smile crumbled into shock, then fury. He took a step toward me, but security subtly moved to block him. I climbed the stage steps, legs steadied despite my hammering heart. The CEO handed me the microphone, his expression gray but supportive. I looked out at hundreds of faces. I saw Maya near the back, tears in her eyes. Julian standing with Noah, both giving me small nods. And I saw Damien, frozen at the base of the stage, trapped between running and fighting. My name is Evelyn Foster, I began, voice carrying clearly through the speakers. 3 weeks ago, I was fired from this company for a project failure that wasn't mine. I recounted everything. The falsified reports. The forged signatures. The shell companies. Every detail, backed by evidence displayed on screens behind me, documents, emails, bank statements. The room watched in stunned silence. When I mentioned the $3 million rerouted through fake vendors, gasps rippled through the crowd. Damien finally found his voice. None of that's admissible, he shouted. She's lying. She's bitter about being fired and, the CEO lifted a folder high. It is when it comes from the board's own archives, he said coldly. And from multiple witnesses. Damien's smile vanished completely. His face turned from white to red as cameras captured every moment. Security approached Damien. He backed away, hands raised as if to ward them off. This is a setup. You can't believe, but the CEO had already motioned to the board. 3 members stood, their expressions grim. Mr. Holt, you're being escorted from this ceremony, one said. Legal counsel will be in touch. As security took his arms, not roughly, but firmly, the ballroom erupted. Investors were on their feet, shouting questions. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing wildly. Employees looked shell-shocked, some crying, others angry. I stood at the podium, watching Damien being led through a side door, his perfect image shattered in the span of 20 minutes. Before they could close the door behind him, Damien's wife appeared. She'd been sitting in the back, apparently waiting for this moment. She stopped me as I descended the stage, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce. You didn't just save yourself, she whispered, gripping my hand. You saved us all. He was draining our family too. Secret accounts, gambling debts, everything. She squeezed harder. Thank you. Then she was gone, and I was surrounded by reporters, microphones thrust in my face, questions coming from every direction. The CEO stepped in, his security creating space. Ms. Foster will be making a formal statement later, he announced. For now, I want to personally apologize on behalf of Datacorp for our failure to protect her. We will be conducting a full internal review. As I left through a side exit, I caught one last glimpse of the ballroom, chaos, confusion, but also something that looked like relief on many faces. The truth was finally out. The headlines exploded the next morning. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. Executives fraud exposed during promotion ceremony. Whistleblower reveals years of corporate theft. Vice President escorted from stage after damning testimony. Photos of Damien being led away by security were plastered across every major news outlet. Overnight, I'd become the face of corporate accountability. By afternoon, Damien had officially resigned, though resigned was generous. He'd been fired, with criminal investigations launched immediately. The board issued a statement promising full cooperation with authorities. Fraud charges. Embezzlement. Forgery. The legal terms piled up. Within days, I received a call from Datacorp's CEO. Evelyn, I want to offer you a position, head of corporate ethics. Complete autonomy, direct report to the board, full authority to implement whatever safeguards you see fit. I stood in my still-damaged apartment, looking at the broken furniture I hadn't yet replaced. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. After he hung up, I sat in silence. The position was everything I could want: power, influence, the ability to prevent what happened to me from happening to others. But could I work under the same roof where I'd been humiliated? Could I walk those hallways without remembering? Maya called that evening. Whatever you decide, you changed something fundamental here. People aren't afraid to speak up anymore. That meant something. Maybe it meant everything. Revenge had been my goal. Destroying Damien, exposing his lies, watching him fall, that's what had driven me through sleepless nights and desperate days. But now that I'd won, the victory felt hollow. Yes, he was gone. Yes, justice had been served. But the cost had been enormous: my peace, my security, months of my life consumed by anger. I walked through the city, no destination in mind, just needing to move. Past the coffee shop where Maya had confirmed my fears. Past the cemetery where my father rested. Past the office building where I'd once felt proud to work. As sunset painted the sky orange and purple, I found myself at the waterfront. Families walked by, kids chasing pigeons, couples holding hands. Normal life, continuing despite everything. That's when the letter arrived via courier. I signed for it, tearing open the envelope with shaking hands. It was from Damien. Prison letterhead. You think you've won? It read in his familiar handwriting. You've only exposed half the truth. The CEO knew everything. His signature is on those falsified approvals. I was just following orders. My blood went cold. Attached was a document, a budget approval form from 2 years ago. At the bottom, clear as day, was the CEO's signature authorizing the shell company payments. I stared at it, mind reeling. The man who'd helped me, who'd given me a platform, who'd apologized publicly, he was part of it too. I spent the next week verifying Damien's claim. Julian helped me access archived files, comparing signatures, checking dates. Every lead confirmed the worst: the CEO had known. Not about everything, but about enough. He'd signed off on questionable payments, approved suspicious vendors, looked the other way when red flags appeared. He'd let Damien operate because it was convenient, because it made numbers look good, because confronting it would mean admitting his own failures. My victory was only partial. Yes, I'd stopped Damien. But the rot went deeper, right to the top of the organization. I sat in my apartment, staring at the evidence spread across my coffee table. I could walk away. I'd won the battle I'd set out to fight. Nobody would blame me for taking the head of ethics position and quietly rebuilding my life. Or I could keep going. Keep digging. Expose everything, even if it meant burning down the entire company. I thought about my father. About Noah. About everyone who'd been hurt by people who thought power made them untouchable. Then I made my choice. I called a federal investigator whose card I'd received weeks ago. I have new information, I said. About corruption at the executive level. All the way to the CEO. The investigator was silent for a moment. Are you sure about this? You'll be going after the man who publicly supported you. I stared out my window at the city lights. I'm sure. The cleanup starts from the top. Months later, I testified before a federal committee. The hearing room was packed with journalists, legal observers, and corporate accountability advocates. Damien watched from a different hearing room, appearing via video link from prison. His sentence had been 4 years for fraud and embezzlement. Now it was the CEO's turn. I described how the corruption had spread through the organization, enabled by those at the top. I showed documents proving the CEO had knowingly authorized fraudulent payments. I explained how systemic the problem had been. When the committee asked why I'd come forward against the man who'd helped me, I answered simply, because the truth doesn't pick sides. It doesn't protect the powerful. It only waits for the patient. The CEO resigned 3 days later, agreeing to a settlement that included criminal penalties and lifetime bans from executive positions. The board was restructured. New leadership was brought in from outside. And me? I stood on the courthouse steps as winter wind whipped around me, cameras flashing, reporters calling questions. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not happy, healing wasn't that simple. But free. My vice president fired me to save face, I said to the reporters. But the truth never protects the powerful. It only waits for the patient. As I walked away from the courthouse, snow beginning to fall, I thought about what came next. Maybe I'd take that corporate ethics position with a different company. Maybe I'd consult, helping other whistleblowers find their voice. Maybe I'd finally rest. But one thing was certain, I'd never again stay silent when I saw something wrong. My father's legacy. My fight. And finally, my victory, not through revenge, but through the patient, painful work of dragging truth into light. What an ending. Tell me, did Evelyn do the right thing exposing everyone, even the CEO? Or should she have just walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. And hey, tell me again, where are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories reach.